I'd just like to read Libraries Tasmania Acknowledgement of the Tasmanian Aboriginal Peoples. We acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of this land, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and future who hold the memories, traditions, culture and hope of Tasmania's first people. Libraries Tasmania also pays respect to the resilience and strength of the Tasmanian Aboriginal people and extends that respect to all First Australian peoples. This is our sorting room, and as you can see, this is what it looks like on a normal day. Nothing's been staged, this is how it actually looks. Sometimes when we get records, we don't always know what it is that we've received until we actually get the records out. So we collect government records and also non-government records. When we get government records, we get lists, so we know exactly what it is that we're getting. So whenever we get a spreadsheet, what's on the spreadsheet is what's in the boxes. But sometimes the community archives people used to, not so much now, but used to get big boxes of things and we didn't always know what was there. And so sometimes the only way we could find out was to actually, and you're welcome to come a bit closer, just to spread out, and that's why we have these big benches, so that we can spread out with the records and actually see. Brian's also got an example there where he's trying to find a map for somebody because somebody's put in an order for a digital copy, and so in order to find which one it is, he needs to spread out because we've got big items, and you'll see a little bit more of that. So as you can see, it's called organised chaos, but we can put our hands on things. Yeah, that's mine. I can see that's got my name on it.
Stuff is always
stuff,
good.
my stuff. So we'll head out this way, and I'll get you to come right down here. Just to give you an idea of the size. So I always bring people out this way so that they can get an idea of just the size of it. So that's half, and this is the other half. So I don't know whether you noticed, but when we walked through, the temperature's dropped just slightly. So where the staff work is about 22 degrees, here it's about 20 with 40% humidity. It's very important for records to have that balance correct. So we have not too high temperatures and definitely not high humidity because that causes mould. You can't not have humidity because the paper becomes very brittle and it will start to, like it'll flake when you're looking at something. So that regulation is really important in order to keep records stable. And in these conditions, if this stays like this, this paper will last forever. It's just not going to deteriorate in any way.
20 and 40 is optimum.
That's, yeah, probably a little bit less than 20 sometimes, and you'll notice in other areas the temperature will drop a little bit again, but we'll have a look in our film vault. It goes down to 13. As I mentioned, we're going to be moving all of these records to our new Gilston Bay site, and I think the temperature is going to be a little bit lower there, but I can't quite remember what it is.
How many archive sites around Hobart?
Well, we have the records that we have here. We also have records in the city, and National Archives are also in our city. They co-locate with us in the city office.
Was there one over at the Berriedale?
No, that's a museum.
Ah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it used to be National Archives, but hasn't been for quite some time. So they now co-locate with us in the city.
Yep.
No sprinklers for obvious reasons, so we have a lot of detection. Once every 3 months we do a fumigation, which is actually happening tomorrow. And what we have to do is because we've got so many sensors, we have to actually take all the sensors off, and then they do the fumigation, and then we put all the sensors back on again, which has caused fun with the staff because sometimes we forget the fumigation might have caused an alarm or something. We have to clear those, and we have on occasions forgotten to do that, and the poor fire brigade have come out, and that's always been fun.
Sad day if you have to use the fire hose over there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, you'd want to hope that if they did, that it would be very localised. So over at our new site, we have a much more sophisticated fire suppression, and it's it's sort of more state of the art. This is an old building. This was
it purpose built at the time?
no. So this was part of William Adams. This whole section wasn't here. It was only this stack area, and I'll explain to you what our noises Paul is doing in a minute. So it was part of William Adams in 1995. We bought the site, and so that was all filled. And then in the early 90s, this section was filled, and it is basically full. I mean, I know occasionally you might see a little bit of empty space, but basically it's to capacity. There's very little space, which is hence why we need to move. So when we get government agency records, we could get 800 boxes of something, or 200. Well, we've got quite a lot of the records from them, and it's a lot of space. So unfortunately, there's still a lot of paper out there. Digital is becoming more used. There's a paperless office, but there's still a lot of paper out there that needs to come. I'll explain a little bit. We do, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a second. We'll come this way. To digitise all of this is a huge effort. Also the storage, and when all is said and done, I mean, digital is stable, but it's just not as stable as paper yet. It is obviously improving, and the technology is amazing. And so we have a lot of records that we have digitised and that we make available on our website. But paper obviously is forever. With digital, because of changing technologies, and this will become very obvious when we go through our film vault and we see all the different technology or the different formats that we have there. It's an ever-changing feast. So if you have this and it's stable for the moment, but then when something new comes, we have to transfer or migrate that to a new format. So that is very intensive work, but it is something that we do, and it's a challenge for archives all over the world.
How does the print on paper get on from pencil to biro to?
Well, have you looked at our convict records? Our convict records are amazing. I mean, in some instances, I've actually thought that the digital version is better than the original. When they microfilmed, there's red ink that they've used on the convict records, and that hasn't translated very well to microfilm. You would have noticed that in your searching in our history room, whereas the digital actually can, and you can enlarge it, you can bring it up, do all of those sort of things. So there are a lot of advantages for it, and there's lots of tricks that they can do too to enhance things. You notice Paul with our noisy trolley coming up the side there. So what happens is every day there is an archives van that comes out here. It collects records for people to use in the history room. It also collects records for government agencies because they need to borrow back. So just because something comes here doesn't mean that it doesn't get used. So for whatever reason, government agency decides that they need something, so they will put in a request for that file. So someone will come out, they'll get it, it gets logged into our system so that we know. Something will go on the shelf, so say they wanted to borrow that back for whatever business purpose. They will put a slip on the shelf, and then that record will go to them. They'll come, they'll sign it, they can have it for up to a month, and then they need to bring it back because it's now a state archives. It's no longer theirs, it's basically belongs to the people of Tasmania. Sometimes we don't need to actually do that. We can scan what they want and send them a scan. So quite frequently, these are the valuation branch of which is actually part of the primary industries, parks, water and environment. They'll actually send a request and they'll give us the information. So they've got the number of this particular volume, they'll be able to tell us that, they'll tell us which page to go to, and what we can do is we can put that on the scanner and we can send it. Quick for them, but also protects the record, because this going in and out in the van does deteriorate the records, and something that we work very, very hard is to make sure that this does not deteriorate. Like, it might come to us damaged, but it will never deteriorate more than what it is. Everything you'll see has a unique number. So we have a system it's an archival management system called Archives 1, and that will give us a unique number. Anything that's not a government will have NS for non-state, means non-government. and everything else that doesn't have an NS is a government record. So that one you can see straight away is a government record. We did a bit of storage optimisation plan. We're trying to get, because we're running out of space and everything is prime real estate for us at the moment, these particular records were sitting on shelves here, but there was quite a bit of space above them. So Brian, who was working out in our sorting room, he reconfigured the shelving so that we absolutely optimised every inch of space that we possibly can. And out of that, we call this a bay. We got 3 bays out of just doing that. So that's his job, is to try and get as much storage out as we possibly can. Just behind you, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our volunteers. We have a lovely band of volunteers that come out here and do invaluable work for us. Like, the work that they do is things that we just don't get time to do. So in the 1990s, when the Mount Lyell Railway Mining Company shut down, basically, put it mildly, they put everything into a couple of big trucks. They came here and they gave us their records. In that set of records, there was some plans and some maps, 8,000, and we knew that there was 8,000 because of the numbering system. And they had a card index that looked into, to help us to find a particular plan, whatever inquiry we received at the time. But we did notice that we didn't always find what we wanted, and it was a bit hit and miss. Probably if you were a bit more minor, mentality, you knew a bit more, it might make more sense, but for us it was a little bit difficult for us to find. And so what we did was we put all the plans into their number sequence. We knew out of the 8,000 there were a few missing because we could tell from the numbering. And then what we did was we get our volunteers to actually go through and put these into our system. So each one has a number, as you can see here. So this is the number that we put them into. They would then put the title of whatever this is into our system, and Archives 1 would give it a unique number, and then they would write that on here in pencil. By doing that, it makes it available to the researcher sitting at home. You can type in a keyword, and then if we've got something that will pop up, it'll tell you exactly which plan it is, and if they make a request, we can come and retrieve this within minutes because we've got that information. As it was before, it was a much more tedious, we didn't know whether we had it, maybe we'd missed it, that sort of thing. Whereas when you're down to that item level information, it's easy, very, very easy. And so our volunteers do that sort of work that we just don't get time to do. Now these are linen plans, and you can actually come up and have a feel. You can see that they've been put onto linen. You can actually feel and see even that. You can see how it's through.
So they could scrape off the ink and redraw it.
Yeah, and also it does protect, like it doesn't tear like paper does.
So in the old days, they used to get a scalpel and just, when they're in the plan, they should update it. They'd scrape off the
and it wouldn't damage the actual,
So I'm just thinking of the sheer volume that you have in here.
Yep.
The numbers don't seem very huge. So what's your actual system?
Right. So this is an NS, so we know it's a non-government.
Yep.
Then it gets a series number. So you know that this is series 2888. So we've had 2,888 different non-government series. Then we've got a consignment number, which just basically means sometimes we'll get, like if we had these plans and then we got another set of the same plans which were the same series, then that would be consignment too, but you don't need to know that. And then this is item 929 of this. So it's not just a running number, so 1, 2, 3 of all different. We actually group things together into series. So that cuts down your numbers. We are going to a new series where they don't quite do it like that, so it'll be interesting to see what those numbers look like. Have you been able to come up with... Oh, you did? Yeah. So, that's well spotted, because otherwise you'd think the numbers would be really long. But by
Would be up
grouping
the door
things
somewhere.
together, yeah, and that may be what will happen. You know, like computer numbers are really long now, but
Yeah.
so that may be the system that we go to. So, I mean, that's a really good point. We, when we get things, what we do is we put them into series. So we'll put all the minutes together, and we'll put all the photographs together, and we'll put all the plans together,
Yep.
all the correspondence together, and then each one of those would get a series number.
Mm.
So, yeah.
The title given in the catalogue is usually or always the name given by the donor.
No.
It's your
Yeah,
name.
it's usually the archivist will say this is minutes of meetings.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we've been consistent.
Yeah.
Definitely not. And we're certainly trying to be a lot more consistent than what we've been. But yes, no, it's given to us. I mean, someone will say, oh, these are our photographs, and we'll call them that. But usually it's something
Because
that
there's
we've
some really
come
weird, I can't think of an example now, but I've come
Oh,
across
yeah, I'm
some really
sure.
weird names of series.
Sure there are.
Like
Yeah.
that must be someone, you know, someone.
No, it's usually us.
Okay.
Come down. So, another set of records that we've got is the Department of Construction. Because they're government records, they come to us. So the Department of Construction used to build all the hospitals, all the police stations, the libraries, administration buildings, all of that. And so this is a plan of North Lilydale. I think it's 1914, and it's just I just always open this drawer because I just think that is such a lovely plan. It's beautiful. It's hand drawn, hand coloured. In this condition, it will survive forever as long as these conditions stay the way they are. This is available for viewing in our history room on an aperture card. Now obviously an aperture card isn't going to give you the colour, it's just going to give you a black and white negative type look. If somebody needed that for a book published, or you know, they could come, they'll request that, it'll be sent into our digitisation services which we have in the city, and they do all our digitisation. For example, Brian out in our sorting room was getting a plan because somebody needs a digital version of that. So they looked at the aperture card, they said that's not good enough for our purposes. I think it was an architect. Not good enough for our purposes, doesn't show me the detail that I need, so therefore that's going into our digitisation services. So in the State Library building we have a team that do the most amazing work, and you, really if you see the quality on our website it really is quite good. It's very good. And so that is something that could happen to this. So once this is digitised, we then keep it and we'll upload it to the web so that it doesn't have to be done again. So, you know, it's all about reducing the wear and tear of the records. So we are, as archivists, we are about access, because there's no point us having something if we can't give it to people. But we're also about preservation, because we need to preserve that forever. The digitisation program is amazing, but it is also lovely to occasionally see that. To me, that has got a lot of character to it, and it says something very much about the time. So I think it's quite special. All right, we'll head down this way. So you can see these are, you know, they're very torn, so they've come to us in this condition. Sometimes we do get things repaired if we feel that it's necessary. These particular records we've had microfilmed, so the wills that you have seen, that you see on our website, come from these volumes. There's this run of volumes here. So when they had the will, so the will went through probate, they then did up a copy and they bound them all together in these volumes, because, and you can see the reason why is that they're so used is because they were well worn going through, people trying to find a particular will. When we got them, because we knew they were going to be very, very popular, we microfilmed these volumes. Then from the volume, from the microfilm, they created the digital version, and that's what you see now. So it's actually from a copy to a microfilm to a digital version. Sometimes that means that the quality isn't quite there, but you can always say, look, I can't read this, and then they will go and find you that information and get back to you on that. Because it's just, you know, it was just a quick way of getting the wills up rather than having these sent back out to be digitised from these volumes.
Oh,
So we
I've
can
got
do
a
it that way.
digitised will from one of my ancestors and I can't read it, so I could request
Well, just ask them to, like, is it a lot? Is it that you
about
can't read?
5-page. Yes,
Yeah,
it's
I
like
talk to the
quite black.
person at the desk and say, look, I've got this, it really is. And so what they might be able to do is go back to the digitised version. They might be able to work it out for you from there, and if not, they'll find some other way. Yeah. So apart from digitisation services that we use for preservation, we
Right.
also have, yeah, you're right, we also have a conservation section. And conservation do the most amazing work again with our records. So when this plan came to us, most likely it was rolled up like these. This has been flattened, it's been cleaned, it has been repaired where it needs to be repaired, it's been put onto an acid-free board for stability, and it's been put into a mylar sleeve, which should be at some end, must be this end, yeah, open, never sealed. Archivists don't like laminating. Just remember that. People say, oh, should I laminate it? No. And this is, no more needs to be done with this. It's in fantastic condition considering its age. We would love to have all of those in this. But just the nature of the work, it is painstakingly slow. Like it is the nature of the work, and unfortunately, they do amazing work, but there's just so much. But in these conditions, they will not deteriorate, so they will stay as they are. But you can see that they just do the most amazing work. They really are quite very meticulous at what they do. Film Corporation, shut up shop. It was closed down by the government. They would make education films, they would do tourism films from about Tasmania. When they shut down, because they're state archives, they had to come to us because they're government records. So we really didn't have the facilities to keep records like that. So this area in here that we're about to go to is our film vault, and we got funding to build this in order to accommodate the Tasmanian Film Corporation, but we also have lots and lots of non-government films as well. We have a wealth of information. This is a huge part of what a lot of people come here every day to do, is to look after this area here. It's again the digitisation. So before we used to have VHS, we would put it onto maybe a DVD, and people would watch the DVD. Now we don't do that anymore, we do a digital version. So over the years we have had to change our practices to migrate to a more modern technology. So we're going to go in there. You'll notice this is where the temperature drops a little bit, but you're all rugged up, so we're all good. And I'll have to get you all to come in first. Do other tours, get people to look through the window, but I think it's much better to actually walk around. You just look at the different formats of the different records that we have. Oh, you go.
Thank you.
Doesn't matter which side you go down, but you can see we've got pretty much everything down to the side. This one's where we're going down. This is a lot of the yeah, so you see that we've got 39% humidity, and it should be about 13 or 14, yeah, 14.9 degrees. So yes, we've got, so this is when we first went to digital, so we had masters and sub-masters. We used to use these, have BBC Pros, and now we don't do this anymore. They go directly onto our drives, and we use them that way. But you can see, and I'll show you. So unfortunately, a lot of these aren't very stable anymore. So there may be but we could get this out, try to migrate it and find that there's nothing there. It doesn't happen very often, it has happened occasionally, but all of these have now been migrated. Yeah, so this stack area has got a row of what we call the L shelves, because every block's got a different letter. So these shelves go right round this stack area, and that's our unprocessed records. Mainly community archives, but you will notice that there's also government archives. So when something comes in, it gets a TR number if it's government, so you can see the TR. Gets a unique number, so we can actually find this. So even though it's not processed, doesn't mean that we can't find it. And if it's community archives, it gets non-government transfer number on it. So a lot of the government, especially when they're big, they'll go straight into the compactus area. So this certainly isn't just here that we come and get our work from. Sometimes we go into the compactus as well. But this goes to show how much work we've got to do. So there is a lot of work. It's slow work. But very satisfying. So you can come through this way. Two things. I always show in my tours these records. These are the birth, deaths and marriage records pre-1900 that are now available online. They are an amazing source of wealth of information and very important to the state of Tasmania. So in December 1838, Tasmania was the first state to actually register birth, deaths and marriages. The other states took that function on after that. They improved on the idea because they give a lot more information. So those of you who've done, New South Wales or Victoria get very excited when you get all this information, and then you look at the Tasmanian ones and think, oh, there's not very much on there, but we were first. So we started the trend. And I always bring one out. I'll bring out a birth this time. But the other thing that I'll show you, which is unique now, you'll notice that some of these have been wrapped and some of these have been bagged. And that's getting ready for our move. Yeah.
Oh, so just the volume, not the...
Just the volume. So we had a conservator come and she did a report for us. She spent a week with us here, opened up every single compactus and had a look in each set of shelves. She took lots of photographs. And then what she did was she gave us a really good idea of how can we move these really fragile records in the best way possible, with as much care. So we had already gone through all of our shelves, and I'm talking about all of them, opening up every single one and having a look, and we said, oh, that's something we're going to have to do that, or we're going to have to rebox that, or we're going to have to tie that. But she gave us a report, and with her report we did what we call the second sweep. So we did a second sweep through, and we picked up all of these volumes which we thought really wouldn't be able, well, not that they wouldn't make it, but we would deteriorate them in that way, and that's just not on for us. I mean, we've become very attached to our records. So some have been wrapped and they have been also taped up, but there's also some have been put into bags, just to do as much as we can to protect them for that move. So eventually when they're all in their final resting place, we'll be able to take these off and they'll sit as they normally do. So this isn't something that you normally see, but it gives you some indication of what we're trying to do to make the move as smooth as possible. I'll bring this out. I always seem to pull out a different one. So these are births in Deloraine in 1858. So I presume you're all familiar with these records. You've used them online if you're doing your family history or research. So you can see that they have the name of the child, the parents, the mother's maiden name, the father's occupation, who registered the birth and when. Also, sometimes you might get some signatures. This is obviously all written by the registrar, that's why it's all in the same handwriting. But it's lovely to see the original, and the information that they give us is just a wealth of information. It tells us a lot about Tasmania in 1858. So they're a very, very important set of records, and these records very rarely get touched. So I always bring them out for people in the tour to say, well, at least you've seen one. Okay, I'll just put that back. So are there any questions or something that you're expecting that